Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Badass Marketing. My co-host Angela Dunn joins me, and today, as promised, we are going to talk about newsletters. Angela, why don't you start us off?
Well, there's a lot of different components of this to talk about. And you know how excited I am about actually having your own list and I consider that a business asset if you have a list. And, one of the things that I'll never forget from when I started out marketing, I worked for a real estate agent. And that sales cycle can be decades.
Hmm.
And she said, I don't care if they don't open my newsletter for 6 years. If I'm still in their inbox when they need to sell a house or buy a house, I'm still their choice. And that's something that has stuck with me since the beginning of my career. Owning your list is a big deal. Now, what you do with that list and the valuable content that you provide, that's a whole episode right there. Is how do you best use a list? How often do you spam your list? There's so many topics.
We
I
never spam our list. What are you kidding me?
don't. No, we share incredibly valuable
There you go.
insights.
With people who have double opted in, so we are not spamming anybody.
Yes, yes. And that's a whole big deal these days too, is, I've noticed that I have been subscribed on to quite a few newsletters that I don't even know who the people are.
Hmm. Well, even if
I
I do know who it is and they subscribe me without my permission, it's like,
I get really angry about that.
yeah.
And it surprises me when it is people that I know and that are in a professional networking group with me, and they should really be a little bit more ethical and professional.
And do you think that's a case of them? I mean, I don't think it's a case of them being unethical. I think it's a case of them just not even realizing, this is how you market. You do need to have permission-based marketing. These are people who are not marketers by trade. And, someone like us said, go get a list. So they watched this much of the podcast and then they went and did something else. So they didn't watch the rest of the podcast where we tell them to make sure that it's a permission-based list. And so having only watched the first couple of minutes here, they went out and they built their list, and they built their list by taking every email they could find and just adding it, right? So, is that malicious? Is that bad? Or is that's just not knowing any better?
Um, I would like to assume the latter.
Okay.
In some cases, though, I just don't think they care. It-
Yeah. So for the record, we do not by any means condone adding people to lists without their permission. We are strong advocates for permission-based marketing where people need to opt in, right? You can
yes.
invite them and then they have the option whether or not they choose to join your list or not. But clearly just simply adding them because you somehow got a hold of their email list or their emails. Which takes me back to one more thought, which is, should you buy an email list? Because I get that
Oh,
email all the time, right? That I can buy 2,000 doctors, I can buy 2,000 San Francisco Bay area businesses. Why should I not buy that list?
this is a debate that I'm having with one of my clients right now. I say no. I say no.
Hmm.
And the reason I say no is because you do not have a relationship with them.
Well, first of all, legally, it's spam because you don't have their permission to send them something.
Nope.
Right. So, starting off legally, you're spamming these people. And then two, if they don't know you, I get a ton of email every day and it's delete, delete, delete. Right. I don't need to read it. I don't know you. I don't know you. Who are you? It's right up there with the phone calls I get on my smartphone saying, where it's like, I don't know you. I'm not answering this.
Nope. Nope. I screen judiciously. if you don't leave me a detailed message and I give you instructions in my message, I'm not going to call you back.
And
I have
so,
heard of people on LinkedIn, as soon as they connect with somebody, they grab that email and dump it into a list. And this is not okay.
and the same, along the same lines, don't add me to your group. And if the first time you ask to connect with me, if your first message is trying to sell me something without establishing any kind of relationship with me, I'm going to block you.
Yeah. Or asking me to follow your company page. I can't endorse you for what you do. I don't know you yet.
Nor do I care.
No, I mean, it's just seriously, I think if people really espouse the whole idea of common courtesy, how do you want to be treated? What works for you? And don't do anything outside of those boundaries to others.
And that also speaks to, the impact. You know, my clients will tell me email doesn't work, but if they're buying lists and they're cold spamming folks that they don't know, no shit, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's like, well, of course it doesn't work because you don't have a relationship with these people and there's no reason. And by the way, you were spamming them. So, I would have deleted you too. I probably did delete you. And you're my client and I deleted you.
I just read a statistic the other day when I was doing research for one of my newsletters, and it said that a good, clean email list is 44% more effective than social media. Now,
Well, I
that was
mean,
disturbing to me because I'm a social media person.
but I mean, it also comes back to what would you rather have, right? Would you rather have a list with 2,000 people where 0.2% open, or would you rather have a list of 150 people where you have 50% open rate? I don't know what the math works out to that, but I'm sort of suggesting the latter.
I mean,
Where you know,
if you want to talk about conversion, the math is really simple.
hmm.
I would rather have the 150 with a 50% open rate because those are people who are interested in what I have to offer.
I mean, we have a client, and they routinely have an open rate of around 85%. Right? It's all we do their marketing. So guess what? It's all opt-in marketing. It's all permission based, and the content that we send them is very targeted, very relevant. And we've been doing that for over a year, and their open rates are still in the 80s because it's we're reaching the right audience with what they want, right? We could have picked up emails along the way and made the list much bigger, but right now, what we're doing is we're making sure that the list is a good, clean list, and we're giving them the kind of content that they want that results in them opening and obviously converting ultimately.
So this brings up another topic, Mike.
Oh, goody, because we're apparently not going to stay on topic for this whole conversation. Go ahead, because we have to get to newsletters at some point, but yes.
Segmentation.
Right. We will get to that. So, do you want to introduce that, or do we go back and sort of talk about newsletters in general and then work our way back to segmentation?
Let's do the general.
Okay. So, I'm going to lead this, and this was something that we brought up in our last conversation about not building on rented land. So, for many of our clients and many of the folks out there, they're highly dependent on social media, and it works for them. They do really well. I have clients who are killing it on Instagram, right? Which is great, which is a great thing. And these clients feel they don't need a list. But the problem is they're building on rented land. What do you think that means, Angela?
Um, well, first of all, I don't care if you're killing it on Instagram. You still need to have a list
Why?
because are you are you converting on Instagram? Or are you just getting a lot of likes and engagements?
No, they're converting. They're doing
That's
well. They're
that's great.
converting. Yeah.
Now, what happened on Facebook with a lot of my friends who are coaches is they changed the algorithm for business pages and they lost pretty much their entire business.
Right.
So
So the reason
if
why
if
we suggest you don't build on rented land is this idea that you can't control social media. They can change the algorithms, they can say you've violated terms of service, they can bounce you, right? So you have no means to control, the visibility of what you're promoting on social media. It may be working today, absolutely. And God bless it because it is working. But make sure you have a backup plan, which is your email list and your newsletter.
Well, let's talk about what's happening with TikTok right now. They testified to Congress last week.
Hmm.
They are facing a ban in the United States. I mean, that's the reality of it right now. Is TikTok could go away in the US. And then what for all those people who are influencers on TikTok?
Well, I mean, and it's even beyond that though, because I think we either last week or the week before we talked about the fact that how many people, had built their business model around. Of course, I just pulled the blank. Uh,
Oh, Clubhouse.
Clubhouse, thank you, thank God. Right? So I had clients who were like, "Oh, Clubhouse is doing it, and they're killing it." And it lasted for about 6 months. And then I don't know anybody who's still on Clubhouse, and it's not been that long.
And I have a lot of friends who spent thousands of dollars on some strategy to get TikTok or get Clubhouse to build them into a seven-figure business. And that never happened either. Yeah,
But
building
even
on
if
a
it did
single,
happen, the staying power of that, right? Because
right,
apparently
right.
Clubhouse is not in favor, and apparently TikTok might get banned. So, these are great platforms. They help you amplify your messaging, but they also can go away, whether because they change the algorithm and your visibility goes down to nothing, or they just simply go away. So, what we're suggesting is make sure that you have the plan B, which is make sure you own the list.
Well, and are you trying to build a sustainable business or are you a flash in the pan? I mean, you get to choose.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we have clients who are doing really well on Instagram, and I'm not suggesting they leave that platform because it's doing really well. But we're also suggesting that as a
Yes.
backup,
Capture.
capture this information because 6 months from now, it may not be working anymore. And if it's not working, we need to do something else. And the one thing we know for now is not going away is people still use email and they still open it.
Yes. Yes. Email marketing is terribly effective if you are providing quality content. If it's a little entertaining or quirky or whatever it is that, but people are looking for value. I mean, I have friends who open up my newsletter. They don't necessarily need marketing information, but they love the stories that I tell, and they just think it's fun to read.
Well, I mean, it conveys your personality. So, if you read Angela's newsletter, you have a sense of what it's going to be like to work with Angela. So, you can see her personality, you can see sort of how she, feels about things. And,
Classic.
it works for some folks, doesn't work for others, but it's just the whole point is this is, if I'm going to work with someone closely, it's nice to have a preview as to, what their style is.
And I think the main thing for me is not everybody needs me today, but they could need me 6 months from now. And I want to stay top of mind. And my newsletter is a wonderful way to provide value and to stay top of mind.
And we have a newsletter and we approach it from a different perspective than the one that you're suggesting, where none of it is personal, so we're not sharing cute stories or anything like that. But, we have been doing it for quite a while and we have consistently, you know, it has been a validator of our position within the industry because we're always talking about what's currently going on in the industry. We are always sort of top of mind. We know the current issues, we know the current events, things like that. So we're an industry resource, which gives us some credibility just by the fact that we're constantly there. We're not, it's not about our personality because in that situation, you're not hiring a personality. You want someone who is an industry insider. And that's, for our purposes, that's what that particular newsletter does for us. is it gives us credibility because we're constantly there with the newest and latest and greatest.
I think one of the things that my newsletter does for me is it really greases the wheels for referrals. So people who have worked with me and experienced what I have to offer, they hear somebody that says, "Oh, I really should be using LinkedIn, but I don't know how." And someone will say, "Well, hey, you should get in touch with my friend Angela."
Right.
And and so for greasing the wheels for referrals, it's definitely an advantage for me.
Well, I mean, it's just a wonderful tool that allows you to remain top of mind. So that, when someone's like, oh, LinkedIn, like, oh, I get an email from that lady once a week and she's telling crazy cat stories. So by all means, just refer to her.
It's out of the newsletter. Got to follow me on Facebook for that.
For the crazy stories, crazy cat stories.
Yes,
One's
yes.
going to make an appearance any moment now that we brought them up, right?
Well, they're both hiding in the closet right now because I opened the door.
There you go. So let's talk about that. So what we're saying is, by all means, build a list, right? Figure out what your audience is looking for and figure out how to give that to them, content-wise, so that you're providing valuable insights to help them in their journey, whatever that journey may be. How often should you send your newsletter? Which is always a question that we
To
get.
be my next question, Mike. For most people, I'm going to say monthly is great. Now, I love my newsletter, so weekly is what I publish my newsletter. You do weekly too, don't you?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Um,
really depends. If you're not a writer, start with monthly and see how that goes. One of the options that you can use so that you get things out there more frequently is you can curate information. You don't actually have to be writing original content yourself. You can be curating things that are going on in your industry. You can have a little something for everybody if you're not segmenting your list and you're just starting out. There's so much that's going on right now. We're at a pivotal time for marketing, and corporate America is changing. There's so much going on. You can't stay on top of everything. So what's going on in your neck of the woods, in your industry, that might be interesting to your clients or potential clients?
so I'm going to respond that once a month is not enough. Yeah. I mean, because we do get this question from our clients a lot, and that is almost, the first thing they ask, how often? And when I tell them weekly, they start to convulse. I'm like, no, no, that's too much, that's too much.
Yes, well, that's why I'm saying
Yeah, I
monthly
know,
to
but
start out with.
we don't tell them what they want to hear. We tell them what they need to hear.
This that is the professional thing to do.
Yeah. And the reality is, there is so much competing for your attention. And I think the frequency of once a month means that if I miss, that email from you for whatever reason, I accidentally delete it, it goes into my spam folder, or, I just get busy that week, then I'm not going to hear from you for another month. Right. And I think that undermines this aspect of remaining top of mind. So I'm going to suggest that once a month is not sufficient, that you need to be out there about once a week, because, we know that a good open rate is 20%. That's a good open rate. You know what I mean? So that means 80% of your list isn't reading it on a regular basis. So you need to be out in front of them because you need to be there when they are in the mood to read whatever it is you're sending. And it may not, if you're going to rely on the first of the month as that time and you get it wrong because the first of the month they're closing their book, so they're doing something other, they will never open your email. If you give them options throughout the month, they may not open the first one, but mid-month things are a little quieter, they might open that one. Um, you know,
Point.
you
Great
know,
point,
I
Mike.
depending on what you want to do. I mean, I'm on some newsletters that I actually genuinely read that are daily. And I'm not suggesting everybody go to that one because that is your full-time job. But if this is a marketing tool for you, and you're using it to, stay in front of your audience, I think you need to be in front of your audience at least once a week.
It took a while for me to be convinced of that. I mean, I
Hmm.
probably toyed around with it for about 6 months, and then I went to every other week, and it really was a slippery slope. It was right away I was doing it once a week after that.
And what's the difference been since you moved once a week?
My open rate's much higher.
Well, because
It's
how many touch points do we need before we're recognized?
oof, 12 to 27 is what I keep hearing.
So so they need to get, and your newsletter is just one of the many touch points, but it adds to, reaching that 12 to 24 or 26 or whatever it was, because people need to see you on a regular basis. That,
Yes,
the reality is, if somebody's like, do you know a plumber? I am going to think of the first person that comes to mind, right? And the likelihood is it's going to be the last person I engage with that, I know. So if I got a newsletter from you yesterday and I'm like, oh yeah, Bob sent me a newsletter, call Bob, he's more likely to be top of mind than somebody I worked with 6 months ago or 8 months ago or a year ago, because I don't run into a lot of plumbers or plumbing situations. So the fact that Bob sent me a newsletter 2 days ago and shared all the joys of plumbing, which by the way I didn't read, but I did know he sent it to me, keeps them top of mind. Like the real estate agent, I don't care if they don't open it, they just need to know that I'm out there.
right.
We
And
would
your
love it if you
subject
open them,
lines
but
make a big difference. Yes,
ideally we're much happier with the client that has an 85% open rate, because that means we're connecting with the audience, which is always a good thing. But once a week, because if you want to use this as a tool to stay top of mind, you have to keep reappearing and you have to sort of show up, you know
so I have a question for you, Mike.
by all
If
means.
you do, if you're doing a weekly newsletter, how often can you actually offer something to them? Or are you just providing valuable content?
I, I'm an 80-20 kind of guy. Okay. So my newsletters typically, depending on the format or whatnot, is an 80-20 rule. So if I want to promote something, that's 20% of my newsletter, and then the other 80% needs to be valuable, useful content. So 4 blog articles and maybe one call to action or something like that. So I use the 80-20 for that purposes, and that's the way the template's set up right now. So, it's typically the last thing on the newsletter is a call to action. And it's, no more than 20% of my newsletter.
I just had an interesting discussion with my business development coach, and he said, Angela, the first three of the month, just keep doing what you're doing. And the last one, actually offer something.
Yeah. I mean, and then so what you're looking at is, you're looking at a 75-25. If, so it's getting you to about the same place. I do it in every newsletter, you're doing it in every fourth newsletter, but which is fine. The point is you need to have enough valuable content that's not sales content, um, to demonstrate that you're providing value.
Right. Now, here's another question for you. Do you need to talk about your area of expertise, or can you talk about the peripheral things in your industry? Which is more interesting?
For us, I mean, we always start with the value proposition, and which is probably a topic we'll cover shortly because we haven't yet. But when we look at a value proposition, we always start with a problem. So in answer to your question, whether it's direct or, peripheral, it really depends on what's the problem that we're addressing. And is it being addressed if it's a problem that's addressed by the peripheral, by all means, that's a perfectly good topic. For us, it's about, what is the problem that we want to talk about? And that tells us where, like, we can go anywhere as long as it's related to the topic that we're trying to solve and trying to address. So for us, it's, our focus is value proposition, and which is based on some kind of need, hopefully a need, problem statement, something along those lines.
And for me, I'm in the marketing space, so that gives me a great deal of latitude because whatever you do on LinkedIn touches on lots of different things. So it gives me endless endless topics to discuss.
And with video marketing, it's stream of consciousness. So God knows what you're going to get from us. It's like we go a bunch of crazy places wherever our little twisted brains take us. But I think it makes it a little more compelling, makes it a little more interesting, makes it more real because this is that's how we think. I'm always amused. Do you ever do like sort of the reverse navigation to how you got to where you were? You're like, why am I thinking
Oh,
about puppies? Well, Angela mentioned this, which led to that, which went over to here, and now I'm over here, and here I am at puppies. So that is an interesting journey, and I think that's how our brains work. Is we make all these connections and land in some really interesting places. I wouldn't call it mind mapping because that's a sort of a different exercise, but it's along. If you've ever seen a giant mind map, you can sort of see how that works. You go from here to there and keeps going. And we love that process because we're also, because and I've said it a million times, we're big fans of the 5 whys, because a lot of times where we start is a symptom. So the conversation does need to go down several paths to make sure that we're addressing the cause and we're getting to a root cause analysis. And we may need to go down a couple paths to realize, well, that wasn't it, or that's not it yet. So,
right.
we like that exercise. We enjoy that exercise. We're also big fans of brainstorming within reason, because brainstorming can be a very important process in the creative process. It can also be a time sink if it's not targeted or stuff like that.
Well, I think a lot of marketers have some ADHD stuff going on and shiny object syndrome that lead us down some of these interesting paths. But
Worse,
I would
our clients
also,
have that.
but I would argue that innovation requires you to get outside of your industry on occasion to really start looking at some fresh ideas and some interesting ways of doing things.
I'm a big advocate, as you know, of fresh ideas. But I'm also sort of a realist. Like let's not jump on. Let's not throw everything onto this right now. Realizing that it could be a fad. It could be keep some of the basics. So, for instance, rather than being taking all of our resources and going to TikTok or one of those other platforms, we're going to say, make sure in addition, you keep the newsletter. Make sure in addition, you're growing your list. Make sure in addition, you're showing up. Because while that may be a great idea, and for anyone who has talked with me in the last 2 months, maybe long, I think you told me last time it was much longer, like Chat GPT is my thing. But clearly I'm doing other things beyond that. And it's a really interesting tool. It is definitely the shiny object in the room right now. But, we still do basic things like, email marketing and newsletters and things like that. So speaking of newsletters, what platform should they use?
Well, that's a very big topic. I actually use CRM, and I love my CRM because it allows me to do the double opt-in. If
Mhm.
anybody schedules a coffee chat with me or any kind of an appointment, they have an opt-in for my newsletter. And um, so I love being able to use my CRM. It lets me know when people have opened it up, how often, how much time they spent there, did they click through? That kind of information is super valuable. Um, if you're starting small, you can start with a regular email list, but I don't recommend staying there. It's really hard. There's lots of low end things like MailChimp and Constant Contact and Active Campaign. Those are mail management systems that people can use, and you can actually segment with those platforms as well and create something that's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, start off small because you need to learn the process anyway. You know, I think how long have you been doing marketing?
Me?
Yeah,
Oh, I've been a marketer for over a decade,
yeah.
probably
So,
probably close to
so it
two.
makes sense for you to have a CRM and which I'm believing you paid for from day one.
I started out with free Active Campaign. That's how I started my newsletter.
No, but I'm talking about the CRM, right? That was a paid
This
tool
the
from the beginning.
CRM is paid.
So what I'm
Yes, but I
suggesting is
came
if
in at
you're
the
new
lowest
to,
level.
yeah, and what I'm suggesting is if you're new to email marketing and newsletters, that maybe you do start off on a free platform so that you kind of get your feet wet and you're not spending a lot of money, while you're learning, going through the learning curve. You jumped on the CRM after you'd been through most of the learning curve, so it made sense for you to graduate to a CRM platform.
And it was
I'm
super easy to transfer the list. It was
Yeah.
super easy.
But what I'm cautioning is for folks that are new, start off with a free platform and understand what you're doing, play with it, screw it up, do whatever you want to do. But don't invest a lot of money until you feel more comfortable with it, or engage someone like us or Angela who can guide you through the process. Because if email marketing takes a while. It's like every other piece of marketing. It's part of the multiple touch points, so you're not necessarily going to see a giant return immediately. It may take time, so you may be cautious as to how much money you start initially, because I've had clients that have come to us and like, we're ready for Salesforce. I'm like, what other marketing have you done? They're like, no, we're gonna and Salesforce is a relatively expensive platform, and if you're ready for it, it's an amazingly powerful tool. If you're not ready for it, you've just spent a whole lot of money. Right.
Without getting any ROA.
Without getting anything. So, for us, it really sort of depends on where are you in your marketing journey as to which platform you should be on. So that, at the bottom, at the end of the day, you need to make a return. This is a business. You need to start generating. So just throwing money at marketing and not getting a response, you're not going to be able to do
Not
that for
smart.
long. Same thing for ads. It's always about start off slow, get your feet wet, make all your mistakes, because you will. We
Yes.
still make mistakes because, and we've been doing this for 20 something years and we still make, it happens. Hopefully we don't make them as often, but there are new products and things that we try, and some of them work, some of them don't. But that's part of the process.
Forget if you're scheduling it or if you're sending it now, like I did 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny.
Let's talk about mistakes for a minute.
Okay,
Let's say that
sure. I've made some good
let's
ones.
I mean, what if you send out a newsletter in the beginning that just falls completely flat and you lose a couple people off of your list?
Oh my God, you're going to take me down another path. But so, have I ever told you about the ODA loops?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do
So my
tell.
answer to that is ODA loops. That's my answer. So a lot of our business strategies and a lot of our marketing strategies are actually military strategies that have been applied to different situations, right? So there's a military strategy about observe, orientate, decide, and act. And this eliminates the concern about making a bad decision or getting it wrong. It doesn't eliminate you getting it wrong. It helps you correct and realign quickly. So the idea is fighter pilots, when they need to understand, to observe where they are and to observe where their enemy is. And for all practical purposes, our enemy are our competitors, right? So, and then once they've made this observation, then they can orientate to figure out what is their plan of attack or plan of defense. Because based on where we are and based on where they are, I can then orientate and I can decide what I'm going to do in this situation. Once I decide, then I act. And then this is a loop, because once I act, my action will cause a reaction. So I will then observe the reaction, reorientate, decide what the next course of action is, and go through this loop again and again. And think of it as a bullseye. Every time I go through this loop, I get closer and closer to the right place, right? So the idea of like, oh, you screwed it up in the beginning, it was like, no, what you've done is you've learned very quickly that wasn't the way to go. You should go in a different direction. So the only time you screw it up is if you don't learn from what just happened. But instead, if you send out a newsletter and it's a crappy newsletter, then figure out what's going on, right? Look, observe, like, okay, nobody's opening this thing. So that either tells you that your content sucks. What you're feeding, it's either not good or what you're offering isn't relevant to your audience. Maybe you've targeted the wrong audience, right? So you observe based on that sort of understanding, you reorientate, well, maybe we change the content to be more focused. Maybe we go after these types of clients. You make a decision and then you try it and you see if it works. And based on the response, you go through that process again. This exercise is a great exercise, except it doesn't work most of the time. Why? Any ideas?
No.
So it's got 4 stages. I'm going to tell
Yes.
you that 85% of people get stuck in one stage. Which one? OODA, observe, orientate, decide, and act.
They get stuck in orientate.
No, they do that. They're good.
Decide, they get stuck in decide.
Decision paralysis. Right?
Oh God.
What do I do? Well, what if that's not the right answer? What if I do this? So they overthink it. And they spend all this time trying to figure out what the right answer is versus just doing something and figure out what and get a response from the market. And what happens is they spend so much time in decision making that the market changes. Rather than putting it out there and getting a response, most folks will get stuck into the decision making process. And we're like, I don't care if it's the right decision. It's irrelevant
It's something
whether it's
out
the right
there.
decision.
Yep.
Because as soon as I put it out there, I'll get feedback and it will tell me whether or not that was the right decision. And when I get that information, I'm going to realign and do it again.
Right.
So for most people, this doesn't work because they don't make the decision. They get stuck. They overthink the decision. Just go out and do it. So if you launch a crappy newsletter, you'll figure out really quickly it's all, either by your open rates or the nasty emails you get back from people telling you what a horrible newsletter you have, which is great. I think that's the best thing ever because that gives you an opportunity to fix it. Right?
Yes. And, I would argue that it's very much like social media. You put out a post that doesn't do so well, it falls flat. Tomorrow it's buried. It's completely buried. And in your email, it gets completely buried also. People forget about it. Now, the people who have already done business with you, they already know you, they love you, they'll forgive you. And if it's somebody who really gets offended, they're probably not your client anyway. They would probably not be an ideal, resonating, really good alignment kind of client. So you bless them and you let them go on their way. And then you figure out what does work for you and for your ideal audience. And you just keep going. And the feedback is great.
And I agree because, when we get negative feedback, and we get it, it's a good thing because it's either an opportunity for us to fix something, right? Like, oh, okay, we probably shouldn't have gone there, or we realized the audience was wrong. Like, as you said, if this offended you, you need to get off our list now because it's going to get a lot uglier before it gets any better.
Yes.
So, so you save us both a lot of grief and just leave. So either it's, it tells us that our messaging was off, or maybe that wasn't the right audience, that maybe we shouldn't have bought that list because they were a little sensitive. So we're happy for the feedback. It's a little crunchy to get the negative feedback initially. You're like, but once you can sort of distance yourself from it and look at it, like, there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity to do it better. And that's, we don't believe that these are mistakes. We believe these are learning opportunities, right? How's that for spin?
And the opportunity in that is that you can have a further conversation. What was it about that newsletter that didn't sit well with you? There's an opportunity to have a deeper conversation and get either more feedback that puts you in the right direction, or to just let that person go because
Yeah.
they're not in alignment with what you have to offer and your way of delivering it.
I can tell you that some of our best clients were clients that we offended because it was how we fixed it that solidified the relationship. Like we did
Yes.
something, it wasn't right for whatever reason, whether we weren't paying attention or we were wrong or, you know, we were skipping steps, whatever it might be. But for whatever reason, it was wrong. Clearly, we made the mistake. But it's what we did with that when it was brought to our attention that makes the relationship with our clients. Because if we make it right or we make it better, and the client sees that we're trying or that we made an effort, they're like, "Oh my God, they actually listened to our comments." And I am genuinely always amazed because I'm a big, you know, I most of the time when I'm working on a project, I'm the customer experience officer. I'm the person who's managing the experience. So I'm very sensitive to experience and how the customer perceives they were treated. Whether it be through marketing messaging or how they are engaged and stuff like that. So I'm always hypersensitive when I'm on the other end and I'm getting really crappy customer service. You know, I can tell you. So I got a new computer. This is welcome to my world. This is a new computer for me. Um, I've had this computer for about 3 weeks, and last week I had a total black screen. Right on a brand new computer, it was not working. And I'm like, oh my God. I won't tell you what kind of computer I have. So I'll leave, I won't trash the company directly, but I will tell you the experience that I had. The experience that I had was that I called the number that was their customer support. This is on a product that I've had for 2 weeks at this point. I was rerouted to the wrong department 3 times. I finally got an individual who talked to me, who basically asked me, had I turned on the computer? Yes. Have I done this? Yes, yes. So we go through her checklist, right? And she's like, well, what are you seeing? I'm like, a black screen, right? So we had that question 4 or 5 times. And then somewhere around the 5th time, after explaining that I had a black screen, she asked me if I could see the logo, which is when my head exploded because I was like, which part of black screen isn't clear? And if I could see a logo, then it's not a black screen. It's something with a logo. You know what I mean? And so this was the customer experience on a brand new product that I've just recently bought. And I'm like, oh yay. This is the customer experience that I'm getting from this company. And would I recommend this product to another? I'd be hard pressed to recommend this product to somebody else based on the customer experience, because customer experience is everything. And so for talk about going off on a tangent and a path, but you
The
have to, if
client
you make a
journey,
mistake,
the
if you make
customer experience, yes, it's all important. And what you do with that, your attitude about the client journey and the customer experience is everything.
and sometimes, bottom line, sometimes you and the client were a bad fit and you should part ways. I've had some
Exactly.
clients that weren't happy with me and I wasn't happy with them. And the best thing that we ever did was decide not to work together, because for whatever reason, it wasn't working and it wasn't going to get better. And it really wasn't a question of one of us was right and one of us was wrong. It was just a question of we didn't work well together, which is
Yeah.
fine, and we, move on. I'd like to say we'd be friends, but I don't do that. So we moved on. Let's leave it at that. But that's not a bad outcome, because you want what you want, and if we can't deliver it for whatever reason, we're probably not the right provider for you, which is okay. There's somebody out there that is, and there's somebody out there that's a client that will appreciate what we do and the way that we do it. So,
Right.
you know, I like the whole, and this was an answer to your question, like, what if you send out a bad newsletter? I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that there is this learning opportunity. Take it as a learning opportunity. Take it as an opportunity to do it better. Um,
Make it personal.
if it's, anything that any new thing, there's going to be a learning curve to it. So I would be surprised if your newsletters weren't crappy when you started out. You know, our videos are crappy right now. They're going to get better, I promise you. But that's part of the exercise, right? That's what you go through when you're developing a product, right? So, you know, we have this sort of mentality of these ODA loops. We're also very, you know, of an agile mindset where you put it out there, you get the feedback, and you adjust, right? And, you know, you do that consistently, you do that frequently versus waiting 6 months to realize the customer is not happy, and you've just embedded 6 months of your time and invested 6 months of your time to find out the customer hated it from day one, but you never got around to checking in with them. We'd rather you hate it from day one and tell us you hate it from day one, and we'll go down a different direction. We'll figure out another path, you know, and stuff like that.
Or recommend someone else.
Or we're not the person for you. Absolutely. I had a conversation with a friend of mine about building a website. And she's like, you know, I'm really persnickety about the fonts and the this and the that and that. And she said, and I think for our relationship, you should recommend somebody else so that we could still be friends. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good idea, because that drives me crazy. You know what I mean? So like, she led with the, you know, I love you, but we shouldn't work together.
And that is wonderful insight.
It
It's
was.
fantastic
Because
self-awareness.
we're still friends.
Yes.
We
Oh,
found her a developer, and we're still friends, and we still hang out on a regular basis, and, you know, versus, you know, so it's good to know your boundaries. It's good to know, you know, there are other options for people. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to make a referral. But the bad newsletter, there's no such thing. Just learn from it. Make sure you learn from it. I think, you know, start off with a platform that's relatively either free or inexpensive. Send it out on a somewhat regular basis. For us, that's weekly. For others, it may be monthly, but that's too long. You know, send them out, learn from it, get the feedback, you know, send them to people that you know, so you can say, what did you think of my newsletter? And like, oh, it was lovely. No, really, what did you think of it? And like, oh, okay, you really want my feedback? Let me give you my feedback. You know, I actually will preface a lot of my discussions with people like, do you want my feedback, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? And you tell me which one, because I can do either. But, you know, if you ask me for my genuine feedback, I'm going to give it to you. So please be aware that, you know, we're going to give that to you.
no matter what happens to my ego.
Some people don't want that, and I get that.
I know.
They're not good
I know.
clients, but that's not what they want. They want to hear what they want to hear. And, you know, we're like,
There's no room for improvement with that.
yeah. But, you know, some people have a vision that this is the direction they want to take it. And I can't say that we've had clients who've had those kind of visions, and we were like, oh, I don't know. And they're like, nope, we know. And they've succeeded. And we've had other clients had the same mentality, and they crashed and burned. So, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, I don't think, again, for us, be agile, be out there, be frequent, build your list, get permission to build your list, but then, you know, and then check in with them. What do you think? What, you know, do you like it? You know, the one thing we also do is we also reach out to the people who are opening it. A lot of people will reach out to the people who aren't opening it and go like, why aren't you opening my newsletter? We ask the people who are opening it, what do you like? So that we can give you more, so you continue to open it. And if they will also give us some insights, like, well, what we really like is this section, but not that section. And we're like, okay, we can work on that, or we can get rid of it. You know, so make sure that you get a cross rep. Don't just ask the people who aren't opening it. Ask the people who are opening what they like about it, and what worked for them. Try to get a cross section of feedback. Don't just go to one source.
Right. So I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that LinkedIn has a newsletter feature. What
I'm
is
sorry.
the difference? I hear that LinkedIn has a newsletter feature. So what is the difference between your email list and a newsletter that you're putting out and the LinkedIn newsletter feature?
I think they complement each other very well. They do different things. Very clearly, they do different things. So we use both. The LinkedIn newsletter reaches a wider audience because they have to do less to opt in. Okay. However, the downside is we don't have direct connections with them. the only connection we have with them is through the platform. So if we leave the platform or if they leave the platform, we don't have a way to touch them, right? So the nice thing about LinkedIn, and it's, the newsletter feature is fine. Provide you can create a newsletter on there. The nice thing is, based on the size of LinkedIn, we get a lot of visibility as a result of just doing it on LinkedIn. The downside is that we can't control the touch points because it has to go through LinkedIn. And then at the same time, we offer a newsletter that is an option. It's an email newsletter where they do opt in, and we do have their direct information, their email for the most part. It's a smaller audience because it's just, we don't have the platform that LinkedIn has. However, we're touching them directly without a third-party intermediary such as LinkedIn or anything else. So we touch these folks directly. We use both because I don't want to try to figure out what works for you. That's too hard. So I'm going to put it out there. And if you choose to read it in your newsletter, in an email, or if you choose to read it on LinkedIn, as long as you're reading it, I'm happy. Ideally, I would prefer to have your email, but if I don't, I'm happy with sharing the information and having you engage on LinkedIn. So we use both because they do different things. And we can leverage that. Again, I wouldn't use only one. I like to use both.
And when you're using the LinkedIn newsletter feature, you have the opportunity for them to opt in to your regular newsletter or to opt into a list of some kind. You can always occasionally be offering them something that
you can try to
email
move the
capture
newsletter. The likelihood is if they're reading you on LinkedIn, that's where they want to read you. So we don't make a whole lot of effort to try to move them off that list. The other really amazing aspect of the LinkedIn newsletter is that we can tag you and mention you and use hashtags, right, to further, the engagement and further the dialogue. So, when I send out this video and you're reading this on LinkedIn, I will have tagged Angela so that her profile is clickable and that you can see her. I'll probably tag newsletters or email marketing as a hashtag so that if you're a fan or following the hashtag email marketing, this will come up. So there's a lot of advantages to being on a LinkedIn platform because that doesn't obviously work on a newsletter. I can tag you all day long, but it ain't going anywhere. So, there are advantages to either platform, but again, a nice thing about the LinkedIn thing is the ability to tag people because we talk about companies a lot. We will typically talk about 20 to 30 companies in our newsletter, and this gives us an opportunity to tag all of them so that if you're interested in learning more about that particular company in the industry that we follow, that gives you that opportunity to go directly to their profile and see what they're up to and stuff like that, as well as the people that we follow. So I think that's a great tool, but as a rule, we don't try to move people from one platform to the other. We give them the option, but we don't spend a concerted effort trying to move them because we figure they're reading us on the platform. We're happy they're reading us.
And I would say that the LinkedIn newsletter feature is a fast growth option if you're providing really great quality content.
You have to provide really great quality content. And then, the other disadvantage of LinkedIn, which is, applicable to pretty much any social media channel that you talk about. It's not a LinkedIn problem, but it's a social media problem, is you're just competing for eyeballs, right? So, while the LinkedIn newsletter will come up in their recommendations or their
notifications,
thank you. Along with every other piece of crap that they've subscribed to, follow, hashtags, and
a lot of people that completely ignore notifications.
Right. So, understand the downside of LinkedIn. Like, it's a great tool, right? We love the ability to tag people. We love hashtags. We like all that, the reach. The downside is you're competing for eyeballs and you're competing, in a very crowded space. So even if they're a devoted follower, they might have gotten 20 things in their notification that day. And, depending on where you landed and what time they signed on, there's just a lot of competing things going on. The nice thing about the newsletter is it lands in their email, and when they get around to reading their email, that it's there when they're ready for it.
Right. Right. Well, that was
So
quite a discussion.
it was. So we are, we will continue this discussion. We will get into greater detail about newsletters and things like that. We didn't even ask what day of the week you're supposed to send this. We will dive into that on a future newsletter, but we hope you will continue to join us on this journey and that you will be a badass marketer just like us. Angela, as always, a pleasure. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yes. Great discussion, Mike.
Thank you.